Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here, CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. I'm with Mitch Zenger today, and we're going to talk about how to create a culture of belonging, something I've been looking forward to. We met before on the 9th of December. Here we are, like two months later. Anyway, Mitch, before we get into talk about that, where can people find you?
Looking forward to our conversation. People can find me. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram. Probably the best place is LinkedIn. So that's really where I will respond. So if you connect with me on LinkedIn and send me any kind of message, happy to continue the conversation.
MITCH, Mitch Zenger,
Zenger. Z-E-N-G-E-R.
Or Z, as you would say, Z-E-N-G-E-R.
Correct.
Cool. So, Mitch, we've been in the UK here. We've been in lockdown now. It feels like 12 months, we've shifted the whole of our businesses online. I just seem to sit at work at home. How do we create a culture of purpose and belonging within an organization? It's the $56 million question, surely.
It's a question everybody is struggling with these days. I think as we go more remote, that connection, the personal conversations, understanding people, who they are, kind of those talking in the break room conversations just don't take place. And so we need to really change the way we think about belonging and think about teams and get people together and really create technology that allows that to happen.
So what is a culture of belonging? Explain that to us.
Sure. So the definition I put around the culture of belonging is really creating an environment where people understand and then really support each other's unique strengths as they work together to build an effective team or an effective organization. So it's me truly creating that relationship of I know you, I know your personality, I know what you're good at, and I'm leveraging that to make, a great and successful and productive team and organization.
Because what used to happen was that on your first day at an office was you were taken around and you shook everybody's hand. You could never remember anybody's name, but someone would go, "This is Steve, and Steve's really good at this." And you could probably kind of remember that. But now you can't do that.
No, you can't. And I also go say you were introduced to all these people and you're almost seen like the outsider coming in. And is this person somebody I could work with, or is this a threat of somebody who might take over my job? Because so much of how we set up org structures was around this competitive architecture. Am I gonna be able to sort of oversee or control that person versus that person being a supportive person who can help us all succeed together?
Yeah, I've been introduced to people before, and they said, "This is the person that used to have your job," and stuff like that. And sort of like they put their hand behind the back. So work is changing, and it's accelerating. I mean, we've gone from kind of we went from working from home to the factory system, and now we seem to be going back to working from home again.
Work from home. And I think the other key element in all of this is the complexity of work has changed so much over the years, where we've gone from, we did a really good job of setting up work as individual tasks that each person could do, and you got good at your task. And if you were an accountant or you were in operations or, you were in marketing or sales, you did that task really, really well. And, today we're creating such complex technologies and systems and solutions that have to interconnect. And so the complexity of that work is just, it can't be done with individual, contribution. It's got to be done with really teams working together, contributing and supporting each other to make a company be successful for most companies.
Yeah, it's one of these things where you're not just necessarily working with people within your own company. You can be working with other companies to bring something together.
It's the hybrid workforce. You're working with partners, contingent workers, contract labor, gig worker, whatever you want to call it, but it's you're not working with just your team every single day. It's lots of people and lots of interactions.
And do you think the lockdown, well, the pandemic and the lockdown has changed people? It's not just work, or is it people that have changed as well?
So I think people have changed in. I think people are becoming more aware of how they come across in an organization, or how they show up in a Zoom call or in a team meeting.
Yeah, I've just been on a call, and it's one of the people that works for me, and they were in their bedroom, and yesterday I commented the fact that he hadn't made his bed. So he came on the call today and said, "Look, Tim, I've made my bed." And I said, "I didn't really mean it. Like it wasn't a criticism. It was just like, it's just like funny having worked in, like you normally go into offices and then I'm sitting and I can see your clothes on the back of your door and stuff like that. It's just strange."
It is great, and I do agree that the pandemic has humanized everybody. That we all begin to realize, you have a real life, you have a home, you have a cat and kids, and we get to experience that. And it has made work more human and more, like this is it normalizes work-life balance and everything else that I think is so important, versus we just need to put on our professional hat, come to work, and nobody knows I have a personal life behind that.
Mm. And I think that's changed us. And as you say, I think that's humanized us. And,
yep.
I was on a call the other night with, it would be in the States, it would be probably the equivalent of your county rather than state. But yep. There was our county police person, so of the area, who was having a call. And it was like 8 o'clock in the evening, and it was bedtime for her child. So her child came and gave her a kiss, and they said goodnight. And we're kind of like used to that now. Whereas, yeah. But the police person had their uniform on, and because that's what, so, and we see that organization.
We've all seen it probably on a daily or weekly basis. So it's great. And I think it does, it creates that sense of belonging or connection that is so important, and even more important now with pandemic.
So how do we if work's changed and people have changed, what do we need to do to get people to get this sense of belonging and to work in teams?
I mean, so I think there's some massive fundamental sort of foundational HR tech problems that don't align with this idea that we're trying to create team contribution. I think there's a lot of people who have very split personalities. We want you to work together. We want you to contribute and help each other and support. But all of our performance management, all of our reward and recognition systems are about individual contribution and the competition between people. And so people are sitting there stressed out, really. I mean, it's like, what's more important? And like, I want to make more, so I'm going to work on the performance side and less on the team side. But those are separate, and they need to come together. We need to really be thinking about what's important. If we're going to try to create a culture of belonging, then all of our systems and infrastructure and the way we reward and recognize people needs to support that, because you can't have both. You need to do one or the other, not talk out of both sides.
Yes, and I think work now is team based, but we're all individuals and we're all working from home, which makes the complexity even worse. My partner's 25-year-old in his current role. He was laid off at the beginning of the pandemic, and he went through the interview process online. He was made an offer. His first day at work was online. And he does everything. And he actually then said to his work, "Well, I'm not going to live in London. I'm going to live in Barcelona, and I can work for work for you, but in Barcelona." But he works as a team. And so but he's mentioned as an individual.
Yeah, and that's going to be the new norm. We're not going back to the old way that it was a year ago and before. I mean, teams, remote teams, in different time zones, et cetera. I mean, that's where we are going. And we need to be thinking about how we're making that successful and how that can happen.
I've just seen some research from Cognizant that says that they reckon that 49% of people are saying that we're not going back.
Yeah.
I know that's not 60 or 70%, but it's still a significant number of people. So how do we measure people in this changing work culture?
I mean, so it kind of goes back to the HR tech and the performance management technology. If we're measuring people on individual contribution, how are you doing, 9-box or stack rank or however that is, like that's creating that culture of competition. We really need to measure people more on team contribution. Are you making our teams more effective? And that's a very different set of questions. And I think there are, questions, I'll call it kind of an employee net promoter score or a team net promoter score. Like, are you creating a team? Are you leading a team that people want to work on, that people want to be a part of? And if so, then you're creating this culture of belonging. If people rate that team or rate you as, not somebody I want to work with or can, be part of your team, that's a problem. And so, I think there are different ways to measure it. We're not doing it very effectively yet, but I think we can.
Because I've worked in organizations where it's all kind of quite the same, where you either have the bell curve, and you plot people over the bell curve, or I've worked for organizations where I think you said 9-box, where there's basically 9 boxes and you put them, but ultimately it's the same. And you plot the people where they are, and ultimately what it is that that if you're in the bottom 10%, you're in trouble.
You're out the door.
Yeah, obviously, I work for organizations where the bottom 10% get fired.
Yep.
And so you do set up a culture of competitism, because what you're doing is you want to make sure that you're not in that bottom 10%. But that doesn't connect with team culture, does it?
No. And it's this idea that in what I call kind of the command and control hierarchy or organizational structure, like leaders can dictate and we can say, yeah, you're gone, you're in, you're out. And we sort of make our judgment of who fits in and who doesn't. If you really talk about a sense of belonging, it becomes the people who are in control and who do that evaluation and assessment. And we should be rating each other on do I want to work with you? Do you want to work with me? Do I support you and create this culture of, I know you're unique. Maybe your contribution is different than my contribution, but together we create better products and better solutions for our customer. And that's the kind of technology or solution that needs to be put together. And it's not. It still is staying in that whole command and control. And so we need to fundamentally rethink, this is the culture we want. What's the technology we need to create to support that and to create that and almost encourage that? I mean, if I think about it, it's, if we think about diversity, we want just, different people coming in and unique backgrounds. If we want inclusion, we're looking for people feeling like they're, giving or doing something for it and all that. If you really want belonging, I want people to feel like I am making other people feel comfortable and accepted and part of this team. Like I'm part of the solution, not complaining that this team isn't working or this company isn't right, or I really don't want to be here because, you guys are different and I'm off looking for my next job.
Because for me, purpose is about, there's two things. One is purpose is about wanting to do something and going, I've got a clear vision about where I'm going.
Yep.
And I'm lucky because I'm the CEO of an organization, so I can do that. Yep. The people below me may not have exactly the same clear vision, but that's my fault. But there's also for me, there's the purpose is also about people. And it may be because I'm a leader of that I see that, but for me it's very important that the people feel that they have not just a contribution but a contribution to each person. Do you understand what I mean?
Totally. They are helping each other, and it's almost like it's the idea that our technology needs to make it so that people understand there's a benefit or value from me helping you and you helping me, and together we're supporting each other. It's really hard to create.
And especially if you've got the bell curve,
especially if your org structure is command and control. So exactly right.
Yeah.
And we've gone to these, I don't know if you know Zappos or others that have tried to create these leaderless organizations, which I'm not pitching that as the solution, but we need to be focused a whole lot more on how these teams function, how they support each other, and how we measure that, because whatever you measure is what people care about. So if we're not measuring team contribution and collaboration and I support you, you support me, then nobody really cares.
Yeah, I did an interview a couple of weeks ago where we talked about the Gore-Tex company.
Yep.
And the culture that they've got, and how it's very team based, it's very mission based.
Yep.
And actually they measure each other, and they come up with certain agreements between each other. And when you first think about it, I read the book about it over Christmas. When you think about it, it does sound a bit hippie, but you can see that having worked in command and control organizations and matrix-based organizations, I can understand the benefit of it.
Yeah, no, it's people. We're in limbo. That's how I would put it. Like work is changing. We're trying to figure it out, and most people are just sort of like, let's throw more tools at it. Let's now, in most organizations, large organizations, I think on average have 15 different HR tech tools. This for rewards, this for contribution, this for doing feedback, this for your performance stuff, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I know someone who's got in a startup, and seem to have a piece of tech for just about everything, and they say that all they do is they spend all their time basically filling in different HR systems, which if the leadership which works to create a particular culture, maybe that's important. So what we're seeing is that control of the way that we're working is changing. We're moving away from individuals to working as teams. We're seeing the way that we measure and control those people changing. In the last 2 or 3 minutes, what else do you think basically changing in the future of work?
So probably the biggest one that's on my mind today is the control of data.
Right.
And this is a big one. So if you look at the battle going on between Facebook and Apple, where, Apple is saying an employee an individual needs to grant access or say, I allow you to use my information to sell me as a product to advertisers. And, Facebook, obviously that's their core business is selling you as a product to advertising. And the same thing's going to happen with your employee data. All my performance, my reputation, what I'm good at, my, think of it as like kind of your LinkedIn profile, all that information of who I am and how I'm seen and how I show up, that needs the ownership and control of that data and information needs to shift from employer control or the control by the organization to employee control.
Right.
Especially as we go to more diverse teams, remote, you're working with partners, you're working with gig workers or contingent labor, that information can never be owned and controlled by the organization. So we need to be creating platforms in a very different way. And that's not a lot of people are talking about that. That's kind of, you kind of think about it like, whoa, that's how can we do that? But if you think about where our technology is going with cryptocurrency, and I think people are finally saying, like, this blockchain and all this data architecture that is truly, protected on the internet, and it works and nobody can hack and get into it. It is time that we take that and give our data that's about us back to us as an employee, so that we can use it and sort of shape it and sort of put our best self forward out to our employers or future recruiters, or people that want to work with us in any different capacity. And that's that's what I think the future holds for a lot of this.
Yeah, I was talking to an organization, and what they're doing is that they're putting all of you can put your qualifications ultimately on the blockchain. So, and therefore what happens is your CV becomes a whole set of barcodes. Maybe this is, about this, and it's been around for years.
No, I've heard there's a couple of initiatives that are getting started. So there's 4 or 5 large HR tech companies that are starting to say, we're going to take your data and put it out there secure. And I think that's the first step. I mean, that's people need to get used to that and say it's going to even go beyond that. Because
that's actually quite disruptive. Because when I went to work for the last corporate role I had, when they gave you a job offer, what they did was that there was then a company that came along and actually checked that you did have all the certificates and qualifications that you had. Whereas if you put it all on the blockchain and you just someone just basically had to barcode it, you could just check the thing on the CV or whatever it is to see that the person did go to that university or did be a member of that society or whatever. And I don't know how it is for you in the UK, but here, if I'm trying to do a reference check on an employee, I can't even ask any questions. Was this person a good employer? And it's like, yes, they worked here from this date to this date, and that's all I can tell you. The rest is protected. Yeah, it's the same with a reference check. All you can do is find out that they worked.
So that system and structure needs to change, and blockchain is the people aren't really ready to say blockchain. Just that's kind of a bad word for some, but it's becoming more normal. Especially as you see what's going on with Bitcoin in the last few months. Yeah.
Mitch, this has been fantastic. I could talk to you for ages actually about this.
I could too.
It fascinates me. And you are I've been talking to a whole bunch of people around human resources, and as I learn more, I become more and more. It becomes more and more interesting and fascinating in terms of because this market is ripe for disruption, and something's going to change.
There's some fundamental shifts that are going to happen, and HR, HR used to just kind of be seen as the support organization, and now with the way work is getting done is changing so much. They're front and center. If we're not setting up our culture and the org structure the way it should be, you're never going to be successful as an organization. So it's lots of fun and exciting changes coming up in the next coming years.
Fantastic. Mitch, remind people where they can get hold of you again.
Mitch Zenger. So MITCH and the last name Zenger, Zenger. You can catch me on LinkedIn is probably the best, but you can also find me on Instagram and Twitter. And
you're a great resource as well. If people are interested in the subject, you're a big writer of blogs on this. And
yes. Please subscribe to my newsletter. It's been doing very, very well these days. Yep.
Mitch, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. And have a good day.
Tim. It's great to talk to you. Thanks for the invitation, and looking forward to continuing the relationship.